Hi everyone, it is the Thursday before Memorial Day 2025 and I am working diligently. I have just set up the Patreon for Rosewood Institute. So the concept of Rosewood Institute is 3 different masterclasses centered around healing and balancing your masculine energy, your inner masculine energy, healing and balancing your inner feminine energy. And then once you are in that space of wholeness, you are then able to reprogram your mind, your body, your heart around all of the things that society and our past wounds tell us about love, dating, and relationships. And that is through the 3rd offering, the 3rd course. So I am right now in the process of expanding upon those masterclasses. I had this vision for Rosewood Institute as it is modeled after the finishing schools of yore, that it would have additional lifestyle electives, because what is a finishing school without the extra added activities that help you tackle wholeness and wellness and elevation on the mind, body, and spirit levels? While my master classes really focus on mind and spirit because we're healing our energy, healing our wounds, we're reversing any of the societal programming or any of the toxic programming that's gotten into our minds from our upbringing or from societal norms. But those heavily focus, like I'm saying, on mind and spirit. I really wanted something that addresses the body component of the mind, body, spirit trifecta. So my natural interests lie with eating healthy, whole, beautiful to look at foods that contribute to a higher energetic sequence for me, as well as undertaking daily fitness that helps me to attune my energy, move my body, feel that, not to go too Elwoods on you, but the feel-good endorphins that exercise brings, as well as the energetic healing component. And that's really what's different about my fitness program that I'm doing, is that not only are we working on gentle stretching and flexibility, we're working on lymph movement, we're working on strengthening and toning muscle, we're working on strength training on a lower level, certainly, but we're also predominantly focused, while we're doing this mindful movement, on moving stuck and stagnant energy. And that's really the true difference between other workout programs and what I am building. So I've been building out the Patreon. It is officially launched for anyone to enroll in the electives. And the way that it works is that there are 3 different tiers that contain the electives, and you can subscribe to whichever one feels the most important and feels like it's calling you. So that's what I've been working on. That's the direction that Rosewood is growing in right now. Maybe if you're listening to this at some point in the future, you'll think, oh, that's so funny. That's the day that the electives got launched. I've been doing them for years. Or that's so funny that this is when you started it because it's changed form and format. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? I'm just enjoying creating and putting my work out there into the world. So today's topic, as a segue, today's topic is something that I've been researching really heavily lately. I have had a few personal experiences, and I mean, I really do think healing and evolving are group activities. That's why I wanted to create Rosewood Institute to begin with, is to create a more communal space for healing and aligning and elevating, because our healing is not done in a vacuum. Our healing is not done through researching and undertaking the scientific method. Our healing is done through the experiences we have with other people. Those are our soul contracts, so to speak. And that's where the divine has led us. And so in my life, I've had a few different people that I've been connected to. We're not going to name names because it's not important. It doesn't matter. But I've had a few people in my life who I've witnessed this pattern of being, the eternal boy, the eternal girl. In psychology, it's called the puer eternus, or the Puella eternus, which is simply Latin for eternal boy, eternal girl, or eternal child, but gendered, so to speak. And this has always been something that, until I knew a name for it, until I had understanding of the psychological basis, and I could understand spiritually and evolutionarily and elevation wise and integration wise what was happening to the person, it was something that seemed so absolutely extraterrestrial to me, so strange and unusual, because that just was not my part and parcel. That was not my lot in life. That was not my wound. And we'll all have those experiences. It's part of the human condition where we have wounds that to other people are not part of their experience. That they are whole and sound, and those people can be the way showers and the helpers in helping us overcome this imbalance within ourselves. That's, once again, as God, as the divine devised, that's the soul contract we have with each other. That's also why we sometimes have interpersonal conflict with different people in our lives, people who are part of our soul family, people who are karmic connections, people who are soulmate connections, any and all of the above, is because we have that mission to heal that together, to work on that together. And that's where some of that friction comes in. And I'm learning and have learned, and it's always a constant thing to be reminded of, that doesn't mean that we should take these things personally, right? We're meant to bump up against each other in this way. We are meant to have some sort of productive friction and to move forward through it. And I know that might sound crazy to people who are very conflict averse or who are confrontation averse. Certainly that does not describe me. I'm a double fire sign and an ENTJ on the Myers-Briggs, so I love productive, healthy, evolution-based conflict. I'm very comfortable with it. And I just, in the work that I do, my work in the world, I feel and understand that that's really the point of this all, with all of us. And that we're going to have different blind spots and different illuminated spots. Let's use that term to compare and contrast them. So our blind spots are the imbalances we have, the ways that we've been wounded, the skew and the bias we have in a certain direction, like our imbalances effectively. Those are our blind spots, the things that we are blind to and don't understand, that the way that we are is unhealed or abnormal or imbalanced. We also have, and all people do, our bright spots, our illuminated spots, the areas where we are in balance and we can be a way shower and a helper and model that balance for others. And through conversation and cooperation, collaboration, and at times confrontation, because at the end of the day, I see confrontation and productive, healthy conflict as simply a collaboration that can turn into cooperation as we let our human emotions subside and choose positivity and choose forward momentum, even if it's painful. That's the point of all of this, right? That collaborative area to help us overcome our blind spots, that collaboration with people who have illuminated spots in the place where we have blind spots, that's the point of this all. So in my life, I've encountered a few different people, both male and female, of different age groups, but for the most part, what I've seen, because it's a little hard to understand in older folks, but what I've seen around my peer group, people who are around the same age as me, it's easier for me to gauge it and understand that what I'm seeing is this eternal boy or eternal girl sort of way of being. And we're not going to focus too much on the eternal boy, because that's a whole topic for another time, because that would require us to dive into what is an age-appropriate masculine balance for each different age category. And we're not going to dive into that framework, or we may be here for a few hours. Instead, I really want to focus as a woman, speaking to, I'm sure, a majority of my listeners, other women, about the eternal girl. This may help you understand a loved one. It may help you understand a friend. It may help you understand yourself. Whatever outcome comes from this podcast episode, I really hope it provides you insight, wisdom, understanding, and a perspective so that you can move forward informed rather than, like I was before I started doing the research, confused. So I was confused because I have not had this, like I said, as my part and parcel in life. This is not my wound. This is not my way of operating. My mother is not like this. My grandmother is not like this. I've not had any, my aunts are not like this. I've not had any women generationally. My closest female cousins are not like this. It's just not a wound that ripples through my family. Doesn't make me better. than you, doesn't make me worse than you, doesn't make my family better than you or yours. It just, like I said, we've got blind spots and we've got illuminated spots. And this was not our family's blind spot. Like, we've got many others, but this particular one is not within our patterning. And so I have always been someone who is, I would say, completely on track maturity-wise. I've never been necessarily deeply parentified. I've never had my mother lean on me to parent my sibling, nor have I had her lean on me to parent her. I just didn't, that's not something that's happened in my life, nor have I had, right, and that would make someone hyper mature to the point of perhaps having feelings of worry and concern that they can't hold everything together because they've been under that pressure for a long time. I haven't had that parentification and that hyper maturity, which can also swing around and make someone or lead someone to be an eternal child when they're an adult, when they do have the opportunity, and we'll get into that in a minute, to actually choose for themselves. So this way of being, right, like I was saying, I could not understand it because I've never been hyper mature, but I've also never been overly childish or immature or been allowed to be that way. Like, I moved away from my hometown when I was just freshly 19, 20 years old to pursue my modeling career. And at that point, any sort of high school mentality or immaturity or not making reasonable decisions as an adult and making one's own financial decisions and making one's own living decisions and one's own strategic life decisions, that went out the window. So even if I would have been immature a little bit in that time, life would have quickly trimmed off any of those rough edges. So I would say, in summary about myself, I've always been on target for maturity for my age, maybe a little bit more mature than my peers because I am a firstborn child and just my natural personality is quite organized. Someone who usually has a plan, I'm a planner, has a strategy, and often takes on like leader of the group energy just because I'm often the one with the plan, the vision, and want to help everybody get on board with the same goal so we can get to work and we can make things happen. Like, that's just my personality. So this way of being took me by surprise when in the last decade or so I've met people, especially women, because we're going to focus on only the eternal girl for this video, for this podcast. I was really shocked meeting women like this because at first it can be really hard to make sense of it, and I'll tell you why. In the work that I do, my work in the world, I'm focused on helping women heal and balance their inner masculine energy, heal and balance their inner feminine energy, and to have these two sides of self working in concerted effort, working in an aligned way to yield the best outcomes for your life in terms of your own personal path, your abundance and wealth mindset, the way you deal with the material, the way you deal with the spiritual, the way you navigate your intuition, the way you navigate your connection to the divine, the way you take from the divine understanding and wisdom and guidance to use your feminine intuition, and the way that helps to guide you as well as your loved ones and those around you, and how you navigate love relationships as a result of being a balanced inner masculine, inner feminine energy woman. Of course, in partnership, women are generally the feminine energy and men are the masculine energy within that partnership among straight couples. But that doesn't mean that neither partner, like each partner has to have, for the most possible harmony and the least possible issues, other than natural issues of evolution and growth and soul advancement, right? To live in harmony and flow and union, it is the divine template, effectively, the best possible course of action is to both have an inner feminine and an inner masculine that you just inherently, healthily switch to given whichever task you're up for, right? Like I always say, making a grocery list is you and your masculine energy. Selecting the foods that you want And remembering intuitively that you forgot blueberries isn't you and your feminine energy. You're listening to that feminine wisdom, that Sophia wisdom, not the logos, rational wisdom of the masculine energy. Then paying for everything, arranging it in your car, you're back in your masculine energy. And then driving home, making a beautiful recipe, getting creative, creating something, making more, multiplying what is now there from what you had, which was just groceries. That's you and your feminine energy. And a lot of people who don't know and haven't given it deep thought seem to think that they should be defined by their relationship to men only, that by even doing the grocery shopping, going to the store, buying the groceries and making the recipe, that they're the whole time fully in their feminine energy. That's not true. Men and women go back and forth. All men and women who are healthy and healed go back and forth between masculine and feminine energy throughout their day. We all do. That is the divine template. That is how we were created. Only through having that balance within yourself will you then be able to have a flowing union with another partner. And that seems to be lost on a lot of women. Something that I've seen, and why I say it's difficult to really clock and understand when you're dealing with someone who is an eternal girl, or the Puella Aeterna in psychology, it can be hard because there's a lot of narratives now and a lot of incorrect ones that women have to be in their feminine energy at all times. That in order to attract a masculine man, you have to be in your feminine energy at all times. That's impossible, because if you were in your feminine energy at all times, you would never take action. That going to the nail salon to get a manicure, setting up the appointment, going to actively meet that appointment time, that's you in your masculine energy, right? Like, I don't understand. Well, I guess I do understand, because this is an area that I've built my life's work around. It is my specialization. It is my expertise. I get that not everyone's going to understand it in the way that I do, but I don't understand why, if they don't understand the ins and outs, why they're giving advice and direction. While I do agree with the notion that in order to complement and align in balance with your masculine partner, you need to be in your feminine energy in regards to them, that doesn't mean you're in your feminine energy all day, every day, constantly, because let's be real, like I break down in my course, action is a masculine energy setting. Structuring anything, planning, executing on that plan, these are all masculine energy aspects. The feminine energy aspects of these would be the creating, the designing, the having a vision for what it is you're going to build, and being able to manifest the right resources, attract the right resources all around you to pull it off. If you were in your masculine energy all the time, you wouldn't really have an idea, a vision, and a blueprint for what to build. You would just be ready to take action once someone shared a vision with you. So neither one in isolation is very effective. That's why all men and all women in their balanced state have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. And that plays out to all things, not just the simple life examples that I've given, but in how you do your work in the world, how you undertake your hobbies, how you take care of yourself, how you take care of your family. You're flowing and going back and forth through masculine and feminine energy day in and day out. So that brings me to my next point. What I've noticed, and what Carl Jung also observed from a psychological standpoint, is that these women, and there are many, they seem to believe that they are fully in their feminine energy, and that's why they are the way that they are. They believe that that is the correct way to be. They have never integrated, they've never liberated, built up their inner masculine, embraced him, and integrated them into their self. Instead, they have a completely inert, if not suppressed, inner masculine. As a result, they're extremely dependent on external masculines to be their surrogate masculine energy. And what I talk about in my masterclasses, in my courses, are that you will not attract a partner who is what you want. A lot of women want a balanced masculine, feminine energy man. And they express that by saying, I want someone who's strong, masculine, a protector, a provider, but who is also gentle and understands my emotional states and can support me and be my strong shoulder to lean on. Ma'am, you're talking about a balanced masculine and feminine energy man. When you are fully in your feminine energy as a woman all the time, not just in partnership, not just in relation to your masculine, but all the time before he is in your world, when you are trying to attract a masculine partner, if you're always in your feminine, you're only going to attract men who are only in their masculine. These are men with no inner feminine energy, who suppress their inner feminine, meaning they often are not in touch with their emotions. They are emotionally constipated. At times, men like this can be so hyper masculine that the only emotion that they accept as valid is anger. Therefore, if they're ever sad, frustrated, upset, disappointed, it all just goes to anger because that's the only acceptable masculine emotion. Men like this often also, rather than being a protector or provider, because they do not have a nurturing bone in their body, they're more likely to use their money, their providence, their physicality, their ability to protect in order to control. These are the kind of men that want to track your car, not in case something ever happens, but just daily to know where you are. The kind of men that want to give you a budget, the kind of men that want to control you with what they do for you monetarily. They don't give you that freedom as a woman for you to buy what you need, get what the house needs, and be taken care of. Instead, they build sort of a prison around you. So women don't understand that in order to attract the partner that you want, you have to be a match for what they are. Because what do I always say? You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Meaning you match energies, and only what you match energy with, only that will be what you see manifest into your life. If you're fully in your feminine energy and always need some sort of surrogate external masculine energy, you're going to continue to attract into your midst men who are in their masculine energy, who are unable to meet you emotionally, who are unable to understand you, who are possibly controlling, who possibly are not generous because they're not a nurturing person. They are someone who is fully in their masculine. But beyond just relationships, women that are in this Puella, Aeterna setting, women that are forever girls, they often have a life that is marked by fantasy. They have ideas of what they want. They have visions, but they never actually take any action because, of course, that would take an inner masculine energy towards any of those visions, ideas, plans, dreams, goals. Instead, they're waiting for someone to come along and hand it to them. They're waiting for the universe to bless them. They're waiting for some external, because that is the pattern of their life. Anyone who lacks the other energy, this is true of men who lack internal feminine and women who lack internal masculine, they're always dependent on some external source for certain things because they do not have it within them. If you do not have an inner masculine as a woman, you have to depend heavily on external masculines to be not only your masculine external partner, but to also carry the load that your internal masculine isn't doing. And the same for men, right? That's when we have men that rely heavily on women. These men are emotional children and rely on women to do all of the emotional lifting in their lives and carry their load and help them understand their own emotions, process their own emotions. And women end up burnt out, confused about, is this his emotion or mine? Completely losing their identity emotionally into a man because they're doing the emotional lifting for him. They're doing all of that unpaid emotional labor, and then end up with a bunch of autoimmune diseases and disorders and all sorts of other health issues because they are trying to process the emotions of two different vessels, which is not how the divine designed us. Instead, men and women are meant to understand themselves emotionally and come to the table with their partner to be supported, to be understood, to be heard, not to hand over the load of life to someone and make them do not only their load, but your load. So back to our Puella Aeterna and how she goes through life. She's someone who never quite settles in and hones in on something because she never gives anything structure. She never has a strategy. She may have a vision, she may have the way she wants things to look and feel, but none of it ever really materializes because you cannot manifest if you don't take those divinely guided steps, like I say all the time. Before you can live the life that you really want to live, the dream that's in your heart, the divine tasks us with becoming balanced in our inner masculine and our inner feminine. That way we can breathe to life the visions in our heart. Things are not just handed to us on this plane. And what fun would that be anyway? What point would that be anyway if everything was like a magic genie lamp where you just rub the lamp and then poof, presto, whatever you want is there? How would you have the skills to hold it? How would you have the skills to grow it? How would you have the skills to maintain it? How would you have the skills to teach others? You wouldn't. That's not the point of life, is to learn lessons and evolve here. So naturally, our Puella Aeterna, our eternal girl, is living in la la fantasy land, where it's all about her sketches, her dreams, her designs, her vision boards, but nothing ever actually materializes and manifests into the physical. She's got all of the blueprint, the vision, the ideal, the dreams, because she's a chronic dreamer, but she does absolutely nothing in terms of taking action, writing down goals, breaking those goals into smaller steps, and going through the blessed journey of the divinely guided actions that yield us the lessons, the experience, the growth, which is why our soul even came here to begin with. So in the real world, I've had this experience with people where I've met people and they've argued me down, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. But if you have a reason why I'm wrong about masculine and feminine energy, men and women both having internal masculine and internal feminine energy, you need to be able to articulate that. You need to be able to explain to me how your worldview works, or I'm simply going to continue to believe my worldview. My worldview is supported by Jungian psychology, Eastern religions and Eastern spiritual understanding, as well as a lot of the Western Christianity and Western Catholic religion regarding divine feminine, divine masculine, may their powers combine, the union of the divine template within ourselves, by the slogan, so within, or as within, so without, meaning as within the being, also outside of the being, or as within an energy, also outside in the larger components, right? So within me, I have divine feminine, divine masculine, inner energy. Therefore, I can attract someone the same, and the two of us can create that masculine feminine partnership that resembles that Christ consciousness, that ability to create in the world, right? My husband and I both have this balanced inner feminine, inner masculine, and have come into union. Therefore, what we create from our partnership is a lot more potent and powerful and a lot more stable because it has the inputs of a divine feminine and divine masculine templated person, which is really the foundation and basis of all of my life's work. So I've had people in my life tell me that it's not one size fits all, that everyone is different, and have tried to tell me that women should be fully in their feminine energy and men should be fully in their masculine energy, and that everyone can want different things. And that's fine to want different things, but if your life is not panning out the way you want it to and you feel stuck, you have to ask yourself, why is that? What is going on with me? What's going on with the way I navigate the world? And pursue introspection, reflection, healing, and elevation. And the experience I've had with people who have this eternal girl, I'll just give you 3 characteristics and 3 life outcomes. So what I've seen with women that have this eternal girl setting, this Puella Aeterna, is that they have a lot of ideas. They often have sort of an ideal way that their life needs to look. They have a concept for what they want their life to look and feel like in a sensory way. They're often someone that has a very lofty view of their life. Like they want to have things that are luxurious. They're very Right, because that's kind of the input of Instagram in the digital age is everyone's obsessed. Because as I said, the people that I'm talking about are people in my age category. They're millennials. So they often want all the nice things and the fancy things of life, which is a bit of like an Instagram aspirational life aesthetic. But when you ask them, if they're not already living that due to inheritance or whatever the case, you ask them, right, and how, like, your life doesn't look like that exactly now. It doesn't look the way you want. What are you doing to get that? And it's always more vision boarding, more sketching, more dreaming. It's never active actions. It's never setting a goal, breaking that goal into multiple other goals, and putting in the masculine energy side of it, right? The strategy, the structure, the goals, the divinely guided steps. It's never that. It's always this like sketchboard, this vision boarding, the hold the vision, and feeling like they can like wish their way into the circumstances that they want, which is not exactly how it all works. Anyone who's built anything will tell you that it's anything and everything is built by, like, creation itself. The divine creator is a blend of masculine and feminine energy, and we were made in that creator's sacred image. And by that blessed template, we are meant to exist. The world distorts us to push us into being fully in feminine energy or fully in masculine energy, or being a woman due to wounding, having to step fully into her masculine energy because of a father, because of a partner, because of someone not able to actively fulfill their masculine role in that person's life. Women often have to say that same with men. Men who often were not mothered well. Men who have had female partners who were in their masculine. They shift more into their feminine energy and start to shut down or do not grow and cultivate their masculine energy in order, right? It's survival, in order to survive. But that is not the way our divine creator had us in mind. We were created in their sacred blessed image to be masculine and feminine energy within us in union, and to find a partner who's masculine and feminine energy in union. And what I'm speaking about applies to all gender expressions and applies to all people, all beings, and applies to every relationship, whether you're straight, gay, no matter how you define. It's a matter of our existence that we are, and it's not even male, female. So please don't mistake what I'm saying. It's just masculine and feminine. It's just the duality. It's yin and yang energy. It has nothing to do with man, woman. It is a more nuanced point than that. And so back to our Puella Aeternus. So I've noticed that that's one trait, is they're always in la la land dreaming, scheming, but never planning and executing. Secondarily, they often are deeply irresponsible. They have a masculine in their life, be it a father, be it a partner, who's completely responsible for them in a material sense. And then they themselves are not really responsible for that partner in a material sense or in a spiritual or emotional sense. And they often are deeply ingrained into transactional relationships. And that the way and the flavor that looks like is going to be colored by a cultural lens, like what's normal and permissible in their culture around transactional relationships and what you're transacting with, whether it's youth, fertility, beauty, whatever it is, whatever that Puella sees as valuable, she sees that as her only currency in a relationship. And I say currency because it's transactional. It's not about union. It's not about partnership. It's not about building together. It's not about planning together. It's not about envisioning together. It's not about manifesting together. It's really survival mode transactional. Like, it's very much wanting to, what I've seen among people in my millennial generation is women who want to be sustained, meaning roof over their head, clothes on their back, food in their belly, and entertainment budget. They live with really a very basic quality of life, and they want to trade their pretty for that. They want to be fed, clothed, and housed, and they want to basically have their physical body sustained by a masculine, external masculine, and they want to be able to sustain that external masculine's ego by being like the pretty girl who is with him. I've noticed that as is a big one. They are often not interested in the wealthiest or most strategic man. They're interested in the biggest sucker, meaning the guy who will put them on a pedestal, who will see them as a prize. And often that's not going to be the transactional relationship that you think of, where it's a powerful, slightly older or more established man, or even an older man. They more want whoever is going to view whatever they have to offer in terms of beauty at a premium. So usually someone who they view as less attractive than them, who they view as like less fit than them, less able, less likely to get a partner that looks like they do. That's what I've seen, because the Puella Aeternus lives like a Disney princess idealized reality. But rather than wanting a handsome prince who is her equal to build their dreams together, which is often the Disney archetype, the Disney blueprint is a little bit more a divine relationship than they would like to see and admit. They instead want like a prince who's ready to just machete his way through the jungle to get to them and their beauty. It's a very like little girl idealized existence. And at the end of the day, no matter how women like this try to spin it, it is survival mode, right? Needing to trade your pretty for, which is another podcast for another time, to provide your pretty for material objects, no matter how nice those materials are, no matter how luxurious that experience is, it's still survival mode. Another podcast for another time, maybe the next episode, so please check it out. Anyway, the third characteristic I've noticed of this Puella Aeternus is they tend to try to absorb, I don't want to say parasite because that's a strong word, absorb resources from anyone's masculine all around them. And this is how you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're definitely dealing with a Puella Aeternus, is that they will try to, and often succeed because they're transactional. They will get things, be it monetarily, gifts, experiences, a coffee, whatever, and get things done for them through other women's healthy internal masculine. So you'll notice around them a lot of female friends that are in their own masculine energy overly. Rather than these women necessarily being balanced, like 50-50 roundabouts, being people who can deploy either healthy sacred energy within them to get things done and to bring from a spiritual concept or a vision into a physical existence, right? Like healthy, divine templated people can do. You'll notice women who are overly in their own masculine, probably because they had an over-present or under-present father growing up, whatever the case. And you'll notice that these Puella Aeternus type women have these type of women around them and will use them to get things done, to get, like I said, entertainment budget, to get clothing budget, to get food budget, right? Because these women are constantly in a state of trying to, not through their own efforts, not through their own doing, but through the actions and work of others and their inner masculines to try to get resources for their survival. You'll also notice, because a Puella Aeternus has like to the floor or very little inner masculine, you'll notice that she can get from and receive from even balanced masculine and feminine women. You'll notice that because anyone with any masculine energy becomes a source of receiving for this woman. And so that is like the three characteristics of the Puella, like how you'll understand that that's the mindset, that's the setting, that's why they do what they do. And now let's talk about three life circumstances, meaning configurations or ways they are in their life that'll help you understand. So you may notice this among older women when they were in a transactional relationship with their husband. And if they've lost the husband, or the husband does not earn enough to support their lifestyle, you'll notice that they will try to receive from any and all masculines around them at all times, even their own children. Like even a child's masculine in its inner masculine energy, and it trying that child trying to develop, and they do this with male and female children, any children, right? Anyone who they can create a transactional dynamic with, better if they can gently, covertly control them so that they can ensure their ability to receive. And they can do the whole transactional dance, because there has to be something that you can provide them that they want and something that they can provide you that's meaningful in order for you, right? And it can even just be social ties or social expectations. These women will never do for themselves, ever. They're always doing for other people small different things, or simply existing and wanting to be showered with material objects and what they need for their survival, right? Like shelter, food, entertainment. Just their lowest level of the hierarchy of needs. It's never about thriving. It's never about collaborative win-wins. It's always about what can anyone do for them, because they can't do for themselves. And this is very different. Needless to say, this is very different from a provider, protector, father, and a mother who is nurturing, guiding, creating a home, and doing all of those various home management things. So please don't mistake what I'm describing as every stay-at-home wife and mother is a Puella Aeternis. Absolutely not. Because the key thing here is that the Puella Aeternis cannot take action. She does not want to care for a home. She does not want to cook. She does not want to clean. She doesn't want to do household management. She does not want to do anything except be rewarded for who she is. She wants to continue to receive from other people's masculines while only offering up her immature view that what she has to offer that is valuable is her youth, her beauty, etc. Because she lives in a stunted level of development. And that is what has led her to not integrate an inner masculine, right? We can go into that further at some other time. I do talk about that in my coursework and in my book as to what would happen to a woman that would leave her fully in her feminine energy. So you can do a deeper dive on that there, but the point of this episode is just to explain to you and help you understand what the Puella Aeternis, the eternal girl, is, and how to know you're dealing with one in your life. Or if the shoe fits, wear it, Cinderella. If this is sounding like you, now you understand what the imbalance is. And I wish you all the best on healing that and getting up to balance. I know you can do it. You came here to do it. We all came here to be in the divine template and live the dream in our hearts for what our life will look, feel like, etc. Anyway, back to circumstance number 2. So the second circumstance of a Puella Aeternis' life is that she will never be down to put in the work, right? Like, you will find that this is the friend who's not very dependable. She's flaky. Everything depends on her whim and how she feels that day. She's very guided by her emotions and doing the very least and experiencing the very least. Like, there's a certain emotional fragility with women like this, that they need to cultivate a day and a life experience that benefits their emotion, that maintains whatever that ideal emotional state is for them. And so they're very not hands-on, not the friend to jump in and help you execute a surprise party for a friend, not the friend that's going to help you move, not the friend that's going to help you within your charity group to pull off a charity event, to do the setup, to do the cleanup, the takedown. They're not action-oriented, because to be action-oriented is to have a healthy inner masculine, or at least a developed inner masculine. These women walk around through life in their dreamland, and they cannot figure out why nothing ever grows in their garden, so to speak. Well, if you never plant a seed and you're looking for someone else to come along and do it for you, you never water the seeds in your garden, you're looking for someone else to come along and do it for you, and all you've done is have opinions on which flowers you want to plant, which seeds you want to receive from someone else, have an opinion on what that garden should look like when it does start growing. How can you expect to have a garden? How? Right? And so you'll notice that these women are just not action-oriented. They want to do nothing. They want to just be, because that is the state of feminine energy. The feminine energy is being. the masculine energy is doing. And to be truly effective in our lives, we need a balanced blend of being and doing. We all go back and forth between the energies to get things done, to ground from the spiritual into the material what it is we want to see in our 3D reality. It all starts in the higher dimensions of the spiritual, in the thought realms, in the energetic realms, in the ether, and then it grounds into the reality. And so the third circumstance of these women's life is you'll often see them with a partner who is fully in his masculine energy. And one interesting thing that happens here is that the Puella Aeternus can attract one of two mates. Either she attracts a man fully in his masculine energy, who is a bit of a tyrant, because when men don't have tempered inner feminine energy, they don't have a nurturing quality. They're more of a dictator, less benevolent and tough but fair leader. It will be someone who's possibly a very narcissistic man, and you could possibly class the Puella Aeternus as a covert narcissist because everything revolves around her and her needs being met. You'll find that neither of them is particularly generous, that there's no trust in the universe that their needs will be met or that there will be flow back to them through giving. Instead, they are obsessed with at least the female is obsessed with what she will be receiving all the time. Never giving, but expecting to receive, which is a law of the universe that in order to receive, one has to give. That's the circuit. That's the flow, right? I look at it like an infinity symbol, and that supports that universal law supports how you'll hear people who talk about manifestation or talk about abundance thinking. They'll say, whatever I spend comes back to me. So I don't even have to worry or second guess it, right? When people give you that advice, they're absolutely right, because the universe is going to return to you what you put out into the world, right? When you give, then and only then are you able to receive. But the Puella Aeternus, the eternal girl, she never got that memo. She does not understand that concept. So she's left scratching her head as to why she doesn't ever receive. In this dynamic with an overly masculine person, she may receive things, but only because he's trying to control her. He's trying to give her what she needs and wants to secure access to a feminine energy, because he does not have an inner feminine energy of his own. So he has to parasite off of and use a surrogate feminine energy, meaning the Puella in this case, in which the two will be engaged in a very transactional, toxic dynamic of using each other back and forth, when they could have just integrated inner feminine energy, the man, and inner masculine energy, the woman, to then have a divine templated relationship, and they'd have a lot more flow. Because in these transactional relationships, there's constant struggle for power and access. The man is trying to constantly ensure, right, the masculine who's fully in his masculine energy is trying to ensure that he always has control over all their money, all their resources, because that controls his access and his securing the Puella Aeternus, the fully feminine energy woman, as his partner, right? And because he is a bit parasitic, not a bit, he's parasitic and predatory, he often isn't with one woman. He sees women as interchangeable. He sees women as only as good as they support and prop up his ego, because the fully masculine man is very egocentric. It's a man who is going to have one partner who's a trophy spouse, but always have an eye on other women. So that Puella is going to always be insecure about aging, about her beauty, about is she going to be traded and swapped out for a younger model. Because when a man has no inner masculine energy, inner feminine energy, he doesn't have empathy for women. He sees women as objects. He has no ability to see a part of himself within a woman. He has no ability to have an open heart chakra towards women. He's more geared by his unhealthy and overly outsized ego, the self, right, rather than the collaborative. That's how a fully masculine man operates. And women say that's what they want, but they actually don't have any idea what they're asking for. And only through experiencing that do you see that template and see all of its less than desirable aspects, and see within yourself that being fully in your feminine energy and unable to resonate with and attract a divine masculine man, you see that it's really not worth it. You see that it's better to heal your inner masculine and be able to be in a state of being and in a state of doing to be able to attract that divine masculine partner. So the Puella will have that toxic masculine, as I say it, that fully masculine energy partner with no internal feminine energy whatsoever, or she will have the puer Aeternus, her counterpart, meaning a man that does not have an internal, he does not have an internal feminine, just like she doesn't have an internal masculine. And he's stuck in a state of forever boyhood. So she will attract someone who isn't a tyrant, and she will think that she's found perhaps a divine partner match. She will perhaps think she's in the divine template, that she's the divine feminine because she's fully in her feminine energy. But what she is attracting is her mirror. She will attract someone who is highly dependent, just like she was probably highly dependent on her father to be her external masculine. You'll find a man, the puer Aeternus, is highly dependent on the mother to be his external feminine. So he will have a strong and unhealthy attachment to his mother to process his emotions, to be his emotional stability, to be his emotional laborer, to fix things whenever he's stressed. And that will be simply the universe giving the Puella Aeternus her mirror so that she can get tired of herself, so that they feel like a match, right? They attract to each other because they are each other's complement, but it's not each other's balance mate. It's not who the other is meant to end up with. So you see a lot of these couples, and we all have friends, we may be people who are raised by these emotionally immature couples that are, maybe have had us in their 20s or 30s, but acted like teenagers, and therefore developed unhealthy emotional ties with their children, which all of us in our generation as millennials, as Gen Z, as Gen X, that we're trying to heal. I mean, shout out to any boomers who are listening to my content, but I don't know how much all of this is going to resonate with you. But I really do think that the spiritual aspects and the psychological aspects will certainly resonate with you, because these are timeless and eternal concepts. But I don't know how much some of my references are going to land, but that's fine. I'm glad you're here. So anyway, so the Puella, just to recap, is going to either be with a toxic masculine or a forever boy. And that's how you'll know that the couple you're looking at are the eternal boy, eternal girl. They have often not been equipped by their parents. They've been hobbled by the opposite gendered parent, and probably a supporting role by the same gendered parent, in that they have never, ever been able to develop a healthy inner feminine for that puer, that eternal boy, or a healthy inner masculine for that Puella, that eternal girl. The opposite gender parent is often overbearing, overconnected, does not allow them to have healthy distance and develop healthy boundaries to allow them to fly like the baby bird that they are out of the nest and develop skills. Instead, they create a codependent dynamic, often a controlling, narcissistic, hypermasculine father will hobble his daughter because he sees all women as a flock to be controlled, by always supporting her financially to the point of her own lack of any sort of independence whatsoever. And a mother will over-mother, and henpeck is the term for it, and be sort of a suffocating mother. A devouring mother is another term used in psychology, to not have any boundaries with her son in order for him to be her forever child. She sees that men, the only way to have power in a man's world is to step into the mother role, that the only people that have authority over men are their mothers. And so in order to navigate a patriarchal society, she may step into over-mothering her son in order to maintain a codependent relationship with him. If he meets all her needs, if he meets all of the child, his needs, if that mother meets all of the child's needs, he will never leave her, and she can continue to receive from him. So oftentimes what you'll see is that a puer Aeternus, a forever boy, is made that way by a mother who is a forever girl. And she's possibly controlled by a narcissistic husband or a narcissistic father. sometimes both, because some women have a narcissistic, overbearing, overly masculine father. They repeat the same by being with an overbearing, narcissistic partner, right? They just marry someone exactly like their father, never examining how unhealthy and toxic the dynamic is. Or if they were deeply hurt and offended by their father and rejected in some ways his overbearing toxic masculinity and narcissistic masculinity, right? A man fully in his masculine, she may swing the opposite direction and be attracted to a man who is the puer aeternus, who is a forever boy. Both of them are fully in their masculine, but one is overbearing, toxic, and controlling. The other is a bit of a fanboy. He's someone who's going to enjoy fun times, bit of a Peter Pan, like fun times flying with Peter and Wendy, but is never going to actually provide the stability and security that the Puella cannot provide for herself. And that she asks from all eternal masculine. So it's an interesting dynamic there. And then the third circumstance in her life is that you will see that the Puella Aeternus doesn't have a trajectory of growth, evolution, and change. You'll see her life kind of the same year after year after year. You'll see in high school she was one way, in college she's just a slightly different version of the same girl. Maybe just the fashion trends have changed, but the same aimless, no commitment to education, no commitment to hobbies, no commitment to a career. You'll see that her hobbies are indulging herself. Her hobbies are self-focused. Her hobbies are anything that supports her crafting her dream world through the bricks that others have handed her from their own inner masculine's ability to provide. You'll see her focusing on going into the secret garden and locking the door behind her. And what I mean by that is her hobbies are just make-believe. Her hobbies are escaping into a world of her own creation, but there's nothing really tangibly there to show for it, right? It's like the friend that tags along to go shoe shopping just to be in a luxury department store, but never buys anything because she can't. It's the friend that is always there for your hand-me-downs, but is never, ever giving you any of her hand-me-downs, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm going to put these things on Poshmark. I'm going to put these things in my swap meet bundle. They're like, oh, you're getting rid of that? I loved that. They're always looking for a way to gain and be provided for by external masculines. They're never, ever putting forward the actions to be supported by their own inner masculine because they don't have one. You'll find that they're doing emotional labor that you never asked for. Like they're chatty, they're talkers, they're counselors, they give interesting advice at times, but they're never actually taking that advice in their life. Their life's often small, really like consolidated down to a small existence because they never take actions to build a foundation and then to build the next layer and build the next layer on anything in their life, right? So it's someone with very little educational attainment, no goals, someone with very little career attainment, no goals, someone who has been in a suspended state of adolescence up and into their 30s and 40s, who doesn't really have much of a resume or achievements. It's someone who spent their time indulging in the fantasy that they can make themselves the youngest, most beautiful, youthful, most desired woman because they have internalized through their different life experiences a certain archetype as the most valuable woman, the most valuable feminine, right? They're obsessed with femininity on some level and being and performing that ideal femininity and femininehood, whatever that may be. It could be an obsession with cooking. It could be an obsession with their physical beauty. Whatever the case is, all they do is absorb themselves in that, affirming that identity and performing that identity in the daydream world that they've created. Very different people. I'm not trying to say, as you know, I've pursued a modeling career. I've had my successes. I've wound that down. That doesn't mean every model is a Puella Aeternus. Absolutely not. I mean that these women, because honestly, modeling is a difficult job. It involves you adhering to specific guidelines for fitness. You would have to have healthy masculine energy in order to execute on your fitness regimen, to be disciplined about what you eat, to be disciplined about when you go to bed, to swear off alcohol and instead be drinking pomegranate juice 3 times a day like I did. That whole, the modeling track, beauty pageants, etc., that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a woman who has no goals, no ambitions, and nothing to show for all of the time spent on these activities because it's strictly reinforcing her ideal self. It's strictly feeding this archetype she dreams to be because she has in her mind, due to whatever wounds and upbringing caused her to stunt her growth and suppress her internal masculine. If it's an overbearing father and she resents masculines, if it's a train wreck relationship where a masculine man, possibly narcissistic, or a Puella Aeternus broke her heart, she now has an aversion to masculinity in others and in herself. So whatever wound occurred that allowed her to normalize suppressing her inner masculine, she now has an obsession with, in order to stay safe, she knows she depends on external masculines. So she's going to do, be, say, whatever she has to in order to be the ideal feminine for the masculines around her. Whoever's proximal, whoever she can receive from, she's going to perform that ideal femininity. And she's going to engage in a million different hobbies. Like, her hobby is herself, is the quickest way to say it. Her hobby is strictly herself. It's not about building. It's not about creating. It's not about putting her work out there in the world. It's strictly about doing anything she can do to be the most ideal feminine that she can be, because she believes that all she has to offer is her femininity, her beauty, her youth. She doesn't have anything that goes any deeper. And it could be completely cultural, right? It could be completely based on the generation that whoever the Puella you have in mind is. She only has that to focus on. And that is her main focus, right? It's the hobby of self, the focus of self. Her education is very self-focused. Her everything, right? Everything will just be this focus on self and reinforcing the daydream world. She does not want to live in reality because she cannot navigate reality. Reality necessitates that you have a healthy inner feminine and a healthy inner masculine in order to navigate our existence, which is comprised of masculine and feminine aspects. Masculine and feminine aspects being like, if you want to create a foundation for something, you have to have a vision. Vision is feminine. If you want to have a foundation for something, after the vision, you have to have a plan. Planning is masculine, right? After a plan comes together, you have to attract the resources for that plan to happen. That's feminine energy, right? You go back and forth in this life between the two energies, but the Puella or the Puella Aeternus, but we're focusing on the Puella today, she cannot do that because she has suppressed her inner masculine due to trauma. So I hope this was beneficial. I hope it helps you understand yourself or people in your life and where they're at. And as always, if you want to learn more about healing, balancing, invigorating your inner masculine energy, you can look up my entire resource center around the topic, which is anything related to the Workin' for a Birkin book or masterclass. Feel free to read the book. Feel free to take the masterclass. Feel free to engage with me on any social channels. If you need individual coaching or group coaching, I also have that available so that I can understand your unique individual case and speak to what it is that you need as an individual, whether it's in a group and supportive setting or individual and one-on-one. As always, remember, you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And I love who you are. But all of us can continue evolving and growing and changing. And I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. Talk to you next time.